Have you ever asked yourself, how do some people seem to move through life always happy? And I don't mean the fake kind of happy, not fake it till you make it, forced positivity happy like I used to practice as a young guy in front of the mirror every morning having a shave, but genuinely calm, grounded, and steady. The kind of people who seem to carry a quiet inner smile no matter what life throws at them, which of course begs the question, what do they understand that many of us do not? By the way, if you're new here, I'm Judd. And on my channel, we talk about navigating midlife with more calm clarity and regaining that joy we had as children. And stick with me till the end, where I'll share something the Stoics understood centuries ago about happiness, something incredibly powerful and yet surprisingly simple. So, what creates happiness? The Stoics had a word for it, eudaimonia, and the idea behind it is beautifully simple. It's a Greek term roughly translated as human flourishing and happiness. Kind of reminds me of the Japanese term for happiness, ikigai. The Greeks, they believed happiness is not about chasing pleasure, not about chasing money nor status, and not about everything going your way. They believed true happiness was something much deeper. They called it human flourishing, a life that feels solid from the inside out. They believe it came from mastering your inner world, specifically through these three things: reason, number one; virtue, number two; and number three, the ability to control that judgment machine working overtime in our heads. Which, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know I talk about that a fair bit. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is a powerful distinction: what is within our control and what is not. When you think about it, almost all stress in life comes when we collapse the two. What do we actually control? Well, our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions, and our judgment about what happens to us. That's it, folks. Now compare that to what we don't control. We don't control other people, circumstances, or external events, and certainly not other people's opinions. Yet, how often do we expend enormous amounts of energy being concerned with and worrying about exactly those things? The Stoics believed, much like is in Buddhism, that that's where suffering begins. The Stoics believed that living grounded values require developing four core virtues. Think of them as anchors for your character: practical wisdom, the ability to think clearly and see situations for what they really are; justice, which, like in everyday life, simply means practicing kindness and fairness towards others; courage, the willingness to face difficulty head on without running from it; and temperance, or self control, the discipline to not be ruled by impulse or emotion. When these four guide how we live, life becomes surprisingly even and steady. No, not perfect, but steady and grounded in something deeper. And here's the part most people struggle with, and I know I sure have over the years. The Stoics didn't believe happiness required avoiding hardship. In fact, they believed hardship was simply part of navigating life. Every challenge, every setback, and yes, even painful experiences are seen as opportunities to strengthen one's character, almost as if life is quietly asking, who are you going to be in this moment? And I found that when you start looking at life that way, something interesting happens. You stop fighting reality and you start to grow from it. Here's a question: have you ever had a moment when you suddenly realized something just wasn't working anymore? Almost like poof, a light bulb goes off and you say to yourself, I can't freaking do this anymore. Well, that moment happened to me while working out on the North Atlantic on an offshore drilling rig. Now, I like to joke, and I have a pretty accurate bullshit meter when it comes to listening to other people's nonsense, but this time it wasn't about someone else. It was about my own inner voice going off. And my BS meter, it was going off loud and clear because Deep down, I knew something about the direction I was headed wasn't aligned with my values. And I remember standing there, that biting North Atlantic wind blowing across the deck, thinking to myself, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep working in an industry that continues to take so much. And that moment forced me to step back and ask myself a different question, not about the job, but about the kind of life I wanted to live. Because sometimes life has a strange way of bringing us to a complete stop, just long enough just long enough for us to hear what our inner voice has been trying to say all along. Funny too, looking back at that moment now, what I realized was this. It wasn't the job itself that was the real issue. It was the conflict between what I was doing and what I knew deep down mattered to me. And that's something the Stoics understood very well. They believed that a meaningful life, a life of eudaimonia, comes from living in alignment with our values and our character, not from chasing comfort, not from chasing money, not from chasing status. And here's the bonus: by choosing day by day, I've found to become the kind of person we respect when we look in the mirror. That realization changed something inside of me. I realized happiness isn't something that we stumble upon somewhere out there in the world. It's something we build quietly within ourselves through the quality of our thoughts, through the choices we make, and through the character we develop along the way. Which brings me back to something Stoics said centuries ago, a powerful yet simple idea. Marcus Aurelius said, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. And sometimes life has a way of giving us exactly that moment we need to start asking these questions. I know it sure did for me. So perhaps the real question isn't what will make us happy someday, but rather what kind of thoughts and what kind of character are we choosing to cultivate today? Something I believe is worth reflecting on. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you've had a time where that light bulb went off where you've said, enough is enough. Have a wonderful day. See you in the next video.